The night I decided to leave Ethan Carter, I didn't pack anything fancy. Just a suitcase, an old hoodie, my civil service prep books, and a heart so bruised it couldn't even feel the pain anymore. I didn't cry. There were no dramatic slaps or accusations. Just silence, the kind that sinks into your bones and tells you it's really over. He had been my whole world for 3 years, from the day we met on campus to the glitzy red carpets where he proudly introduced me as his girlfriend. Or so I thought. The truth is, I was never his only one. He found someone younger, fresher, shinier, Vanessa Collins, the new it girl on every casting director's list. And just like that, he handed her everything. The luxury endorsements, the scripts I fought for, even the necklace he once said was our 3rd anniversary gift. Turns out it was a hand-me-down. Classic Ethan. He didn't even try to hide it. I walked in on them once, her perched on his lap at some flashy bar in downtown DC, his arms wrapped around her waist like she was his world. And I just stood there, holding the thermos of sobering soup I made for him after a 14-hour shoot, like an idiot. I remember his friends laughing, whispering things like, "Here comes the old girlfriend," while Vanessa pretended to be surprised I existed at all. That moment should have shattered me, but it didn't. I was already hollow. The soup spilled on my hand, burning me, but I didn't even flinch. Ethan just sneered and said I was being dramatic, accused me of trying to guilt-trip him. And then, in front of everyone, he said, "I'm only with you because your parents died saving me." I hate people who use favors to keep others tied down. If it weren't for that, I would have dumped you ages ago. That was the moment something inside me broke, not out of sadness, but relief. I had been clinging to a man who saw me as a debt, not a person. I left that night, no fight, no fanfare. I knew he'd come crawling back eventually. Ethan Carter was the kind of man who thought every woman would always orbit him. And he did, of course. When he saw me ignoring his calls, he went ballistic, 200 missed calls in 3 days, as if I was supposed to be flattered. But I had other plans. I moved to Maplewood Village, a small rural town where no one cared if I was famous or heartbroken. I used the last of my savings to rent a modest place, and during the day, I followed Michael Reed, a local community officer, helping with village surveys and elderly care. At night, I studied like my life depended on it because, in a way, it did. The civil service exam was my escape, my rebellion, my clean slate. Those days were exhausting, but grounding. For once, I was living for myself, not for a man, not for likes or comments. I started seeing beauty in the little things. Kids playing in the rice fields, the quiet rustle of wind through maple trees, the feeling of waking up without checking social media. But of course, peace never lasts. One evening, as I stepped outside to stretch, I ran into someone leaning against the wall, flicking a silver lighter. Ethan. Of all people. He dropped his cigarette like it burned him when he saw me. "Claire," he said, ruffling his hair like some brooding movie lead. "You really won't answer my calls? I came all the way here, just like I did in college when we fought. Remember that? You always forgave me back then." His voice was desperate, but it only made me feel numb. I remembered that college fight. It ended with a kiss, salty with tears. Back then, I thought love was everything. But now? Love without respect is just emotional blackmail. I looked him in the eye and said, "You talk about reconciliation, but you're still messing around with Vanessa. You can't even be faithful for a month, Ethan. We're done. This is over." He stepped back like I slapped him. I could see the shock ripple through him. Then came the excuses. "Vanessa? That was just physical, Claire. I liked her because she reminded me of how innocent you used to be. That's all. I even bought you a replacement for that dress she tore. Come back to DC. With me. I'll make you a star again. And then the kicker. I'm giving you one last chance. Do you want to get back together?" I didn't hesitate. No, he looked stunned. Then he laughed, bitter, angry, defeated. "Fine," he said, stuffing a box into my hand. "Don't regret it." And he walked off. I opened the box. Inside was a diamond ring and a note, yellowed with time. It read, "Claire, this is a letter from 3 years ago. I always thought we'd grow old together. Will you marry me?" For a second, I couldn't breathe. The ring from when he was 18, when love was still pure. But time doesn't wait. And neither will I. A few weeks later, I flew back to DC for the written exam. It felt strange being back, walking the same streets where I once chased dreams with him. But this time, I wasn't performing for anyone. I aced the test, and when the results came out, I ranked first 147 points, over 10 higher than the next candidate. But I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Too many people fail at the interview stage. So I locked myself in for 2 more weeks of prep. The day of the interview, I drew a topic on poverty alleviation perfect. I spoke from experience, from heart. I saw the panel nodding as I spoke about rural reform, digital economy, and the real faces behind policy. The results came out instantly. First place. Again. My heart was pounding. I made it. I passed. After years of being reduced to someone's girlfriend, someone's pity case, someone's scandal, I finally did something just for me. My phone buzzed. Ellie, the little girl from Maplewood, sent a voice note. "Sister Claire, I made apricot cakes with Officer Reed. Come home soon. We're waiting for you." I smiled for real. For the first time in years, I smiled not for the cameras but because I was happy. Truly, peacefully happy. The physical check was done, political review passed. All that was left was the public announcement. But I had one last thing to do. Return the ring. I went back to the old villa in DC, planning to drop it in the mailbox. But the door was open. Inside was chaos, empty bottles, cigarette butts, and Ethan lying on the floor, drunk, disheveled, a ghost of his former self. He saw the ring box in my hand and smiled like he won. "You're back," he said. "Let's go get married." I shook my head. "I'm here to return this. That's all." He thought I was bluffing. Started calling Vanessa, offering to end it all. He looked for his phone like a madman. But I was done. I placed the box on the table and whispered, "Ethan, this is the end." He reached for me, stumbled, and tripped over a broken picture frame, our college graduation photo. His eyes in the photo were full of love. His eyes now were full of regret. I didn't stay to watch him cry. I walked away, just like he once told me to do. No more second chances. No more lighters. No more Ethan Carter. I thought walking away from Ethan Carter would be the final chapter. But turns out, the real drama didn't even start until after I gave him back that ring. The very next day, promotional posters of Vanessa Collins disappeared from every street in DC. Like someone hit a global delete button on her. Her face was gone from buses, billboards, even the front page of streaming platforms. Then came the news. Her endorsement deals were pulled. Directors dropped her from major film projects, and companies she was collaborating with all announced contract terminations within 24 hours. Boom. One moment, she was Hollywood's sweetheart. The next, she was a scandal magnet nobody wanted to touch. The internet lost its mind. Headlines like "Vanessa Collins canceled overnight" trended for days. And I knew exactly who orchestrated it. Ethan Carter, in all his twisted, toxic glory. That man destroyed her with the same ruthlessness he once used to hand her the spotlight. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I felt tired. Tired of being dragged into his power plays. Tired of being used as the stick he beat others with. Vanessa called me, of course. She did, screaming into the phone like a banshee. "Claire, you told Ethan to do this, didn't you? One night, and I lost everything. You destroyed me. How many times did you sleep with him to make him this loyal to you?" Her voice was so venomous, I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I didn't respond. I hung up. I couldn't listen to that level of delusion anymore. But she didn't stop. She went full psycho on her verified social media account. Claire Bennett, the washed-up star who's been kept by Ethan Carter for 3 years, is now destroying other women just to climb back to the top. Everyone in the industry knows how she made it: sponsorships, manipulation, and pretending to be the victim. 10 minutes. That's all it took for the post to explode. Comments flooded in by the thousands. Wait, is she talking about Ethan Carter, the DC? Trust fund baby? Claire Bennett really got to where she is by being a sugar baby? No wonder she suddenly disappeared from the spotlight. Trash behavior.
Disgusting.
Using one man to destroy another woman. She's no better. I stared at my screen and felt nothing. Maybe I was just done being angry. Or maybe I was already numb from 3 years of being called everything except my name. But the worst part? It wasn't even true. Ethan offered me resources all the time. I rejected every single one. I built my career on my own. Every commercial, every role, every award was blood, sweat, and no favors. Still, the damage was done. My DMs were filled with the ugliest things imaginable. I got called names I won't even repeat. People shared old clips of me out of context, making it look like I was some manipulative diva. I watched it all spread like wildfire. But this time, I wasn't going to let it burn me down. Because something beautiful had just happened. I got the official employment notice. I passed everything. I was now officially a civil servant. And for the first time, I had the power to speak my truth without worrying about losing everything. So I posted a full tell-all. I wrote about the 3 years Ethan and I spent together, from college sweethearts to the toxic end. I included screenshots, dates, even receipts, proof that Vanessa knew I was still with Ethan when she started hooking up with him. I didn't paint myself as a victim. I painted myself as a woman who endured too much and finally walked away. And at the end of the post, I attached my employment offer. One single caption. I've landed. Thanks for your concern. The internet exploded. It was the plot twist no one expected. Suddenly, everyone turned. Hold up, so Claire and Ethan were legit? Vanessa was the homewrecker? She passed the civil service exam. Like the civil service exam? That's crazy. I thought the name on the provincial results list was just someone with the same name. I didn't know it was the Claire Bennett. This woman really dipped from the industry and leveled up in silence. Icon. My inbox turned from hate mail to fan mail. People started calling me the real-life koi fiche symbol of resilience. Repost Claire Bennett for luck in your exam. From scandal to civil service queen behavior. Someone even edited a video of me studying late at night with captions like the glow-up no one saw coming. I actually laughed.
Genuinely.
After months of darkness, there was light. I returned to Maplewood Village to celebrate with Ellie and Michael. They baked apricot blossom cakes and made me wear a flower crown. Ellie giggled and said, "Sister Claire, you're the smartest person in the world." I almost cried. I wasn't famous anymore, but I was finally valued for who I was, not who I dated. The physical check passed. The political background cleared. All that was left was the final public announcement. On my last day in DC, I decided to tie up one last loose end. I returned to Ethan's villa not for closure, but because I wanted to give the ring back one final time. But when I got there, the door was cracked open. The smell of alcohol hit me first. Inside, the place was a wreck, bottles everywhere, curtains drawn, ashtrays overflowing. Ethan was sprawled on the floor in yesterday's clothes, opening another bottle. He looked like a shadow of himself, sunken cheeks, hollow eyes, unshaven. When he saw the ring box in my hand, he grinned like an idiot. "Claire, you came back. I knew you'd come back." He tried to stand but stumbled. "Let's go get married."
Right now.
"I've got the registration papers ready." I shook my head and held up the box.
No, Ethan.
"I'm not here to start over. I'm here to end it properly." He looked confused at first, then frantic. "Is it Vanessa? You're still mad about her? I'll call her right now. I'll end it. I'll fix this, okay?" He started fumbling through the mess, looking for his phone. I just couldn't anymore. I placed the ring box on the coffee table and softly said, "Let's stop here. We both know this is goodbye." He looked like I slapped him again, reached for me and tripped over a photo frame, our college graduation picture. The one he tore up in a rage. Somehow, he taped it back together. I was on one end. He was on the other. But in the picture, he was looking at me, smiling, as if the rest of the world didn't exist. And yet, here he was, broken, drunk, crying in a pile of regrets. I turned and walked out, not even glancing back as the sound of glass shattering echoed behind me. That night, Vanessa Collins lost everything. Ethan unleashed the same power he once used to crown her. He stripped her of every title, leaked every scandal, released behind-the-scenes footage of her bullying other actresses. She was done. When she called me again, her voice was no longer cocky, it was desperate. "Claire, I'm begging you. Tell him to stop. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know he'd go this far." I didn't answer. Because I didn't control Ethan. He was never mine to control. And truthfully, I didn't care what happened to either of them anymore. I had a job waiting for me, a new life, and a whole future Ethan could no longer ruin. The world had finally seen the truth. And more importantly, I had finally chosen myself. For the first time in years, I felt clean, like I'd washed off every trace of him. My phone buzzed. It was Ellie sending me a selfie with the school I helped build behind her. She wore the same flower crown she made for me and grinned so hard her eyes turned into crescent moons. "Sister Claire, come back soon. We're saving you the biggest apricot cake." I smiled at the screen and whispered to myself, "I'm finally home." The day I officially joined the department was blindingly sunny, the kind of day that makes the whole sky feel like it's rooting for you. I wore my new uniform, neatly ironed and slightly oversized, but it didn't matter, it felt like armor. I stood at the entrance of the government office in Maplewood Village, looked up at the faded sign, took a deep breath and smiled. "Hi, Claire Bennett, reporting for duty." It felt surreal. Less than a year ago, I was crying backstage in haute couture dresses, having my roles snatched away, my name dragged through the mud, and now I was standing here, clean and proud, without makeup, without glam squads, without anyone's validation but my own. The office was buzzing with early morning energy, phones ringing, printers humming, and people walking fast with purpose. I got assigned to a special outreach team focused on rural development, which, to be honest, couldn't have been more perfect. I wasn't interested in sitting behind a desk pretending to care about paperwork. I wanted to move, to meet people, to understand the lives behind policy. Michael Reed, my colleague and now low-key bestie, was already waiting with a clipboard and a thermos of black coffee. "You ready, Bennett?" he grinned. I nodded. More than ever. That day, we visited 5 households. Most of them were elderly couples or single parents, hardworking and kind, living in modest brick houses that had replaced the crumbling mud walls from a decade ago. The change was visible: concrete roads, solar panels, kids with clean uniforms and shiny backpacks. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Real, visible progress. One of the grandmas we interviewed kept holding my hand, telling me I looked like her granddaughter, who left for the city years ago and never came back. She gave me homemade pickles and said, "Come by anytime, sweetheart. You look like someone who's seen rain but still shines." I almost cried. Every night, after fieldwork, I returned to my small rental and studied public policy. Not because I had to, but because I finally wanted to. I felt purpose in my bones. The girl who once memorized lines and posed for cameras was now writing reports and crunching statistics, and weirdly, I loved it. I started volunteering at Hope Elementary on the weekends. Seeing Ellie run to hug me every time I walked in made my heart feel full. "Sister Claire, I saved you a seat," she'd yell, waving a hand-drawn picture of us holding hands with a rainbow overhead. These kids didn't care that I used to be famous. They cared that I listened, that I showed up, that I remembered their names. And honestly, that was worth more than any red carpet. A few weeks into my new life, something unexpected happened. Ethan Carter showed up. Again. I saw him from a distance, first standing beneath the blooming maple tree outside the school, holding a bouquet of red roses and wearing an expression that looked like both regret and exhaustion. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, letting the moment stretch between us. Finally, he stepped forward, voice quiet but clear. "Claire, I flew here before your announcement was even posted. I've been waiting. I realized you didn't leave because of jealousy or drama. You left because I destroyed your trust. And I was wrong. Then he knelt down on one knee, pulled out another ring bigger, shinier, newer than the last and said, "The ring from 3 years ago was childish. This one is worthy of the woman you've become. I know we can't undo the past, but please give me one more chance." I didn't flinch. I didn't melt. I smiled gently, the kind of smile you give when you've already moved on. "Actually, Ethan, the ring from 3 years ago was perfect. You were perfect. Back then.
But you're not that guy anymore.
And I'm not that girl." His eyes sparkled for a second, full of desperate hope, until I added, "Ethan Carter, 21, was reckless, selfish, and cruel. My parents died saving you in that earthquake. And later, you mocked me for being an orphan. You destroyed my career, shattered every script I worked for, and cheated like it meant nothing. I can't erase those memories, and I have no intention of pretending they don't exist." The light in his eyes dimmed. He slowly lowered the ring box and sank to his knees like someone just cut the strings holding him up. "I'm sorry, Claire. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I was just lost." I looked him in the eye and replied, "You weren't lost. You were just entitled. Please don't show up like this again.
It's exhausting.
I hate you. Let's both move on and be free." He covered his face with both hands, and I saw the tears slip through his fingers, but I felt nothing. No pity. No pull. Nothing. Just a quiet sort of relief. I turned around just in time to see Michael walking up with Ellie beside him, holding 2 boxes of apricot blossom cake. He paused when he saw Ethan on the ground and raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay here?" I nodded. "Just throwing out old trash." Ellie tilted her head and whispered, "Sister Claire, is that man okay? He looks like a lost puppy." I laughed and pinched her cheek. "That's not a puppy, sweetheart. That's a bad man. Let's not feed him attention." Ellie giggled and handed me a piece of cake. "Cake makes everything better, right?" I took a bite, smiled as the sweetness melted on my tongue and whispered, "You're absolutely right." A few weeks later, I got approved for a vacation before officially taking on my new post. I didn't think I'd just packed a backpack, booked a ticket, and took off. I sat by the window on the high-speed rail as it zipped across states, mountains, and lakes. The world outside was vast and green and full of possibilities. I saw fields of sunflowers, rivers curling like silver ribbons, kids flying kites, and I thought, this is what freedom tastes like. Along the way, I found a wishing tree. It stood tall, old and kind, branches covered with red ribbons fluttering in the breeze. I wrote my wish on a ribbon. "Claire Bennett, please always be the captain of your own life." I tied it carefully, stepped back, and let the sunlight break through the leaves and bless my next chapter. Because I wasn't running anymore. I was arriving. When I returned to Maplewood, spring had arrived. The bare trees had blushed with new leaves, the air was warmer, and everything felt like it was quietly blooming just like me. I unpacked, brewed myself a cup of jasmine tea, sat on the porch, and let the wind carry away the last bits of winter that had lingered inside me. I wasn't the girl from the tabloid scandals anymore. I wasn't the actress trying to prove herself. I was Claire Bennett, public servant, sister figure, community volunteer, apricot cake lover, and proud owner of a soul that had finally healed. And this time, the spotlight didn't blind me. It warmed me. Officially starting work felt like stepping into a new timeline, like the version of me that used to cry backstage in designer dresses had been folded into a sealed chapter, and now I was Claire Bennett 2.0 up before dawn, clipboard in hand, riding shotgun in a government-issued SUV down bumpy rural roads with Michael Reed half asleep beside me, holding his coffee like it was oxygen. I wasn't just working a job, I was showing up for people who were used to being ignored. Every day felt like a blend of chaos and purpose, inspecting newly built irrigation systems, coordinating small business trainings, helping elders with healthcare applications, and getting dusty in fields with sunburned farmers who handed me warm water bottles and called me our girl from the city. These weren't tasks that showed up in headlines or won awards, but they mattered in a way nothing in showbiz ever had. I wasn't performing anymore, I was participating. On Saturdays, I still volunteered at Hope Elementary. Ellie would run up and scream, "Sister Claire," like she hadn't seen me in years, even if it had only been 5 days. Her hair was always in pigtails, her shoes a little too big, and her hands usually holding something sticky. She insisted I try homemade candy, dried fruit, mystery juice from her mom's thermos. I accepted everything. It was part of the deal. "You promised you'd always come back," she'd say, pinky raised. I never broke a pinky promise. One afternoon, while visiting a family in the valley whose home had just been connected to stable electricity for the first time, I got a notification that sent chills down my spine. A headline flashing across my phone. "Claire Bennett refuses to walk the red carpet, suspected diva behavior." At first, I thought it was an old link. But when I clicked, I realized it was brand new. My name was trending again, and not in a good way. Apparently, someone leaked a clip from the last event I attended before quitting entertainment, the one where Vanessa Collins tore my haute couture dress right before I was supposed to step out. The media twisted it like I had stormed off in arrogance, and to make it worse, a bunch of anonymous insiders were quoted saying I was difficult to work with, manipulative, and kept by Ethan Carter. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The timing wasn't a coincidence. Just as I'd started to breathe, someone decided to pull me back underwater. Old photos were recirculating, sliced out of context, and sitting in Ethan's car, me hugging him at an award show, Vanessa crying in the background of a blurry shot like she was the victim all along. My inbox flooded again. Same recycled insults, same recycled lies. I was suddenly reminded that healing privately doesn't protect you from public attack. Michael noticed my silence and raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" I swallowed hard and nodded. "Just internet trash." "Want me to report it?"
No.
"Let them talk. I've got work to do." But that night, as I sat on the edge of my bed, phone glowing in the dark, I saw a message from Ethan himself. He had the nerve to text me a screenshot of the trending topic with the words, "Still think you can survive without me?" I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because I suddenly saw him for what he was, a man addicted to power, to relevance, to being needed by someone. I blocked his number without a second thought and tossed my phone onto the desk. The very next day, I wore my best suit and took a walk straight into the local media center, where one of our rural development partners happened to be live streaming an interview. When they asked if I wanted to say anything, I smiled at the camera and said, "Hi, I'm Claire Bennett. Yes, that Claire Bennett. And I want you to know that I'm not a star. Not anymore. I'm a public servant. And if you want to gossip about me, at least use my correct job title." That clip went viral. People were stunned. Wait, Claire's not in the industry anymore? She's working in a village? She passed the civil service exam? She actually stood in a rice field and talked about irrigation? Even people who had no idea who I was started reposting the video, calling me the ultimate boss move, main character energy, and the glow-up we didn't deserve. Students began using me as a case study in resilience. Someone stitched a TikTok of my red carpet photos next to a shot of me holding a clipboard and rubber boots, captioned, "From glam to grassroots queen behavior." I didn't expect the public to defend me this time, but they did. They dug up the truth. They reposted my civil service results, my donation to Hope Elementary, my story with Ellie. The hashtags changed overnight. Apologized to Claire Bennett and From Star to Servant topped the charts. And as for Vanessa? Well, it didn't take long before her lies caught up. Screenshots leaked of her conversations mocking me, bragging about how she snatched Ethan just for fun. Brands started distancing themselves from her again, and netizens weren't kind. She bullied Claire and lied about it. So she really did tear the dress? And she called Claire a broken shoe?
Gross.
And then, as if the universe had a twisted sense of humor, Vanessa tried to spin the narrative one more time. She went on a live stream with crocodile tears, claiming she was pressured by Ethan and didn't mean to hurt anyone. I rolled my eyes so hard, I almost gave myself a headache. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth was already working for me. A few days later, I got called into a meeting. My supervisor said, "Claire, there's a National Rural Innovation Conference coming up in DC. We want you to present. Your work with Maplewood has been outstanding." I was stunned. "Wait, you want me to go back to DC?" He smiled.
Yes.
"As a professional, not as a celebrity." The irony wasn't lost on me. The city where I lost everything was now inviting me back to showcase what I'd rebuilt. I nodded slowly. "I'll do it." The day I returned to DC, I wore the same coat. I left in a beige trench with a tear in the pocket and memories stitched into every seam. I didn't visit Ethan. I didn't revisit old studios or bars or red carpets. I went straight to the venue, set up my presentation, and delivered a speech about community farming, tech literacy, and microloans. But the last slide of my deck showed a little girl holding a paper crown made of daisies, with a caption that read, "This is why I do what I do." The applause was thunderous. Reporters tried to follow me out, asking questions like, "What do you think of Ethan Carter's latest film? And do you have any comment on Vanessa Collins's career downfall?" I just smiled, turned to the camera, and said, "No comment. My focus is the future." And just like that, I disappeared into the crowd, not as a fallen star, not as a victim, but as a woman who had rewritten her ending. The conference posted my segment online, and Ellie watched it at school. She sent me a video later that day, her eyes wide with pride. "Sister Claire, you were on a big stage."
But you still smiled the same.
I told everyone you're the best. I cried that night. Not because I was sad, but because I finally felt seen for something real. I had traded an applause for meaning, and it was the best deal I ever made. After the conference in DC, something shifted inside me. It wasn't just validation, it was liberation. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't running away from who I used to be. I was simply walking forward, step by step, into who I was becoming. Back in Maplewood, life settled into a rhythm again. The workdays were long but satisfying, planning irrigation updates, holding town hall discussions, coordinating education subsidies, and somehow, I started becoming a name that meant something beyond old gossip. People began inviting me to speak at high schools, local women's forums, even university career days. "Miss Bennett," they'd say with shy smiles, "can you tell us how to start over?" And I would tell them the truth, unfiltered, messy, real. I told them about losing everything, about betrayal, about standing in the ashes of your own life and choosing to rebuild anyway. I never sugarcoated it. I told them starting over didn't feel empowering, it felt humiliating, terrifying, and lonely. But it was worth it. Every single time. One day, while organizing a youth outreach project with Michael, we were walking near the new greenhouse installations when he turned to me and asked, "Do you ever miss it?" I knew what he meant. The lights. The red carpets. The attention. "Sometimes," I said honestly, "but it doesn't hurt anymore. It's more like remembering a dream that used to belong to a different version of me." He nodded slowly and didn't press further. That was the thing about Michael, who never tried to fix me. He just stood beside me, quietly steady, the way I never knew I needed someone to be. That afternoon, we delivered school supplies to a remote cluster of homes up in the hills. Ellie came with us, of course, because she had very important delivery duties and insisted on giving every kid a drawing she'd made. Watching her hand out those crayon-colored cards with tiny stick figures and rainbow stars made my heart squeeze. At one point, she ran back to me, completely out of breath, and said, "Sister Claire, do you know what I wished for when I saw the wishing tree last weekend?" I smiled. "What did you wish for?" She beamed. "I wish that you'd stay here forever." And just like that, I knew I wasn't leaving this place, not anytime soon. But peace is never permanent when your past is teeth. A few nights later, as I was going over data reports at home, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Claire," the voice on the other end said, hoarse and eerily calm. "I just want to talk."
"Ethan."
I felt my stomach twist. "There's nothing left to talk about." "Please," he said, almost whispering. "I'm outside." I froze. I walked to the window and saw him standing there in the dark, under the street lamp, holding something small in his hand. I went down, slowly, cautiously. The air was cold and smelled like rain. "Ethan," I said quietly, "you shouldn't be here." He looked thinner than ever, pale, unshaven, but his eyes were clear for once. "I know. There's no more press. No more tricks. I'm not here to win you back. I'm just here to say it." I waited. "I ruined everything," he said. "You, my own reputation, Vanessa's career, even my father's trust. I was so obsessed with control that I lost the only person who ever looked at me without fear." I didn't speak. I wanted to hear what he'd say, without interruption. "When you walked away, I thought you'd come back. You always came back. So, I punished you, thinking it would break you. But it didn't. It made you shine brighter. And that's when I knew. I wasn't the sun in your life. I was just the shadow." He held out the item in his hand. It was the old silver lighter, the one I'd thrown away. He'd picked it out of the trash. "I kept this," he said, "because it was the last time you touched something for me without being forced to." I took a step back. "Ethan, I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you but for me. But this is the end of our story. I don't hate you anymore, but I'll never love you again." His shoulders sagged, and for the first time, he didn't argue. He simply nodded, whispered, "Thank you," and walked into the night. I never saw him again. Word spread quickly. Ethan left the country shortly after. Vanessa signed with a small agency, trying to salvage what was left of her image. And me? I finally exhaled. I threw away the lighter again, this time deeper, buried under cement and new beginnings. The following week, I was invited to attend a provincial-level recognition event for community transformation leaders. I wore a simple navy dress, no jewelry, no designer shoes, just me. When I stepped on stage to accept the award, I looked out at the crowd and saw something that made me pause. Ellie, sitting in the front row with Michael, wearing a hand-painted t-shirt that said, "Claire is our hero." I almost burst into tears. After the event, she jumped into my arms and said, "You looked like a real-life princess." I laughed. "I thought I was your superhero." "You're both," she grinned. "Princess in the day, superhero at night." I hugged her tighter than I probably should have, then turned to Michael. He looked at me for a long moment and said, "You've come a long way, Claire." I smiled, eyes glossy.
Yeah.
"And I'm finally exactly where I want to be." But even in joy, life doesn't slow down. There was still more work to do, more families to help, more programs to run. My next assignment involved leading a digital literacy initiative for rural youth, a pilot program that could eventually go nationwide. And I wasn't just part of IT, I was in charge. When the proposal was approved, my supervisor told me, "You're not just building systems now, Claire. You're building a future." That night, I sat on my porch under the stars, thinking about everything. About the girl I used to be. The girl who thought love was everything. The woman who had her voice stolen, then learned to scream with silence. The person I became when I realized being good doesn't mean being weak. And as I stared at the moon, I whispered the same promise I wrote on that red ribbon tied to the wishing tree. Be the captain of your own life. I had no idea that the final chapter of the story would come so sooner, that it would involve one last confrontation with everything I thought I had left behind. Just when I thought my life had finally shifted into calm waters, a storm started brewing beneath the surface, quiet at first, like a whisper before a scream, and it all began with a glitch, one small, seemingly innocent error in the server of our rural youth digital literacy program, the pilot project I had poured months of my soul into, and at first we thought it was a system bug. Maybe a misfire in the network, but then Michael called me at 11 p.m. with a tight voice and said, "Claire, someone's trying to sabotage the platform from the back end." And that word sabotage snapped something cold and familiar in my chest, so I pulled out my laptop, opened the logs, and my breath hitched when I saw the access history, because someone with a registered IP from a private firm in DC had tried to rewrite our funding transparency report, inserting forged payment records and redirecting our pilot budget to a shell company, and as the pieces clicked together, I already knew this wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake, it was personal, and I had a sinking feeling who it could be, so I reached out to our internal audit team, compiled everything, and within 2 days we confirmed it. The fake firm was co-owned by someone closely linked to Ethan's old circle of influence, and guess whose name showed up on the media files leaked alongside this exposé? Vanessa Collins, looking all glassy-eyed in a sudden viral video, spinning another tearful monologue about how Claire Bennett had funneled state funds into personal accounts under the guise of rural charity, trying to sell a story that I was using the government as my newest sponsor, and as expected, the video blew up within hours, with hashtags like Rural Queen or Rural Scheme and Claire Bennett exposed crawling up the trending lists, and I remember sitting there on my living room floor, surrounded by papers and reports and receipts and truth, while Ellie napped on the couch beside me after drawing a whole series of Miss Claire is a Superhero comics for school, and I stared at her tiny peaceful face and thought, no, not this time. You don't get to ruin this part of me too. Not when I've rebuilt everything with my bare hands. Not when I finally found who I am. So I stood up, emailed everything to the Provincial Discipline Commission, contacted our media liaison, and the very next morning, I held a press conference. Not glamorous, not dramatic, just me in a plain blouse behind a microphone with evidence projected on a screen behind me as I laid it all out: data trails, fake payments, co-ownership links, old voice notes Vanessa forgot to delete from a cloud folder where she literally bragged about getting back at that civil service bitch who thinks she's too clean to touch. And the crowd gasped, and the flashbulbs went off, and I wasn't shaking anymore because I wasn't scared anymore. And at the end of it, I just said, there's a cost to healing in public, but the reward is knowing the truth walks with you. And then I left without answering a single reporter question, because I didn't need to explain my worth to the internet again. I had already done that once, and the results came fast. Vanessa's video was removed by every major platform for misinformation. The fake company got blacklisted. An arrest warrant was issued for Ethan's former associate for fraud and attempted embezzlement. And as for me, I got a personal letter from the provincial governor commending my integrity, followed by an offer to lead a long-term rural revitalization think tank. And I remember sitting on the porch that night, wind soft, stars blinking quietly, and Michael sitting next to me with a bottle of lemon soda in hand, nudging me gently, saying, "So, think tank leader, huh?" And I laughed, forehead resting against the back of my chair, eyes closed, and I whispered, "I'm just grateful I never gave in, because that was the truth. I could have taken Ethan's ring. I could have fought dirty. I could have chased revenge instead of rebuilding, but I didn't, and that mattered." And just as I was sinking into the comfort of knowing this chapter was finally ending, Ellie burst out of the house with a paper crown in her hands, yelling, "Sister Claire, emergency!" And I sat up immediately, only to have her plop the crown onto my head and declare, "You've officially been elected Princess of Maplewood." And Michael tried to keep a straight face, but failed miserably, and I looked at them both, him with his quiet strength, her with her boundless hope, and I realized this wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better. It was real, rooted, and mine. And a few weeks later, when I stood beneath the same wishing tree from my travels, I found the ribbon I had tied so long ago, still fluttering with the breeze, still holding the words, "Be the captain of your own life." And I added a new one beside it that simply read, "You already are." And as the wind danced between the branches and the sun cast golden streaks across the hills, I finally let go of the last thread that tied me to the pain of before, because my story wasn't about the fall, Anna Marie, it was about the rise, the grit, the messy climb back into the light. And if anyone ever asked what happened to Claire Bennett, I'd tell them, she wasn't ruined, she was reborn.